Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
And we are breaking some new ground this week, Kristen.
Yes, we are.
We want to give a big shout out to our new network that we are live streaming upon, as well as some others. We want to give a big shout out to the Paranormal United Network. We're streaming live on Facebook, Pun TV.
Mm-hmm.
Do check us out there. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for welcoming us so much. They are some of the kindest, nicest people I've met in the paranormal.
Yes.
They're so nice. We're only concerned that you're going to ask us out an investigation, and we're like, yeah, just keep walking in the woods. You'll find us. And we get out deep in the woods, and then gunshots or arrows start flying or something like that. No, just kidding. They're actually awesome people. They're all investigators, and we've loved talking to you guys so far. And I think this is a great fit. So we're really psyched to be there. We also want to give a big shout out to United Public Radio, and especially Joe Montaldo. We love you, man. And thanks, man. It was good talk earlier, and we're going to talk some more.
I'm sharing it to Dark Horse as well.
Okay, yeah. So we're just getting a couple of things together here. I think you wanted to say something about your latest necklace.
My latest necklace. I'm totally in love with Bridget Honings. It's Mystical Creations by Bridget on Facebook. You have to see. She's very talented. I know I always say that, but this is my newest piece. You can't see it has a little Jack Skellington part in the middle. So yes, thank you again, Bridget.
Awesome. Thank you so much. She has supplied Kristen with some of her finer necklaces, her finer wares.
Yes, I'm addicted to our page. I have to stay away from it.
So we've had a lot going on. We caught, and I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, the series on Amazon Prime called Them. If you haven't seen it yet, do check it out. Oh my God. We binge watched the whole series, the entire thing in one night.
Well, actually, two. It was the next day as well.
The last episode, we kind of had to replay because we're getting a little foggy there.
Yeah.
But, oh, man, we really like that. That was super cool. Our other projects we've talked about, our ITC-related project is still underway, and we're making some progress there. We got a lot of good things to look forward to. We're really getting psyched. We're psyched for summer and getting out there and doing some investigating and research.
Absolutely.
So we have a wonderful guest with us today. His name is John Russell. John Russell has been an internationally known professional psychic for almost half a century, working with clients around the world. He has also been a featured guest on many popular radio shows and recently filmed a TV pilot for the History Channel, in which he psychically explored the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. He has also been an avid motorcyclist for over 50 years. When he's not chasing ghosts around the country on his motorcycle, John enjoys reading, painting, making photographs, gardening, target shooting, and fancies himself a fair chess player.
Yes.
So let's bring him on. Welcome, John.
Kristen, hi. How you doing?
Hi.
We're doing great, my friend. How are you?
Doing great.
I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's really great to be here. I'm excited.
Oh, it's great to have you. You sound like such an interesting character. I was trying to get you on for a little while, and thank you for being able to fill the slot for us and come in. We really appreciate it.
Yes, very much so.
Happy to do it. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Right on. So we'll get right to things. As I understand it, and I've seen a couple of interviews with you, you had a kind of a haunted childhood. Is that right?
A very haunted childhood.
When I did as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Let's delve into that because that sets the stage for everything that follows in my life. When I was about 5 years old, I was sleeping in my bed, and my bedroom door was open. We had a hallway down the way there that my parents had put a nightlight in the hallway so that I could see when I woke up at night. So for some bizarre reason, in the middle of the night, I suddenly sprang up wide awake. I mean, just totally wide awake. And I thought, well, this is really odd. And I kind of raised up on my elbows in bed, and I was looking around, and I looked down the hallway, and from around the corner of the doorway, this old black man was staring at me. And I screamed bloody murder because my family's white and we didn't have anyone black living with us. And I don't think we even had any black friends at the time. And so I presumed that an intruder had broken into the house. Well, when I screamed, he stepped around the corner of the door frame into the hall and walked a few steps toward my bedroom. And he was as solid as you or I. He had close cropped white hair. He didn't wear glasses. He had on a red flannel shirt and he had on khaki pants, black shoes, and a black belt. And just like I say, just as solid as you or I. And he walked a little closer and just stared at me in the hallway. Now, his look wasn't menacing. I wouldn't describe it as benign either, but it certainly wasn't menacing. And I screamed at the top of my lungs, and my parents came running. And when my parents came running, he began then to disappear. He first became translucent, and then he became transparent, and then he vanished completely by the time my parents got there. And so I was so terrified that I convinced my parents there was somebody in the house. And while my mother held me and I cried and wailed and everything, my father actually went through the house, looked under the beds, in the closets, all through the house, checked all the doors and windows. And of course,
Wow.
nobody was there. And they tried to tell me, oh, it's just a child's nightmare. You just had a bad dream. And I knew better. I knew that I had seen my first ghost. And so I lay awake the rest of the night trying to go back to sleep and wondering, is he going to come back? Why did he come in the first place? Is he going to scare me to death? What's he going to want me to do? Is he
Sure.
going to talk to me? You know, what happens from here? Well, apparently he showed up to do one thing, and that was to open up the portal to the other side. Because since that time, I've had well over 1,000 paranormal experiences, and these are experiences that are on the physical realm. They're not meditated, envisioned, hallucinated, dreamed, imagined. These are actual physical occurrences. Many times we get them on tape, we record them, audio and video, other people witness them. So he was there apparently just to open that portal up and to awaken my psychic gift as well, which started a little short time later when I discovered then that I had the ability to read people's minds, tell where they had been, tell what they were going to do, and so that was the start to all this.
Wow, it's really interesting, and it's cool that it doesn't appear like it was a menacing creature, like a
No,
shadow man kind of thing, or
Right. Yeah.
a
So-
dark entity. You were scared, but naturally you would be scared just because there was somebody in your home that didn't seem to belong
didn't
there,
belong
right?
there.
And
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
5, I think you said, 5 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And it wasn't a menacing presence. I was scared because I was a kid and I thought somebody broke into the home. And since that time, I have never been scared again of any paranormal experience I've had. I've been startled, as anybody is. If you're alone in the house, you're alone and all the doors and windows are locked and you turn around, somebody's standing there, you go,
Mhm.
oh, and then they disappear and you go, oh, okay. So I've been startled, but I've never been scared again. And I think it was a great way, looking back in retrospect, it was a great way to open up that portal to the other side and to introduce me to my gift and to introduce me to these experiences. And it's been one wild, incredible ride ever since.
Wow. That's really interesting. I think you had said you have had experiences with guardian angels, and how did they help you play a role?
Many, many times. Um, I'll give you an incident from this is in the first book that I wrote, Writing with Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead. And I was zooming down. I've been a biker since I was about 15 years old, and an avid biker. Like on my current bike, I've got almost 114,000 miles just on this bike alone.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of riding, a lot of serious riding. And so I had scheduled a day off, and it was a beautiful sunny day and good weather, and all I had to do was ride. And I would regularly, even with my full-time clientele, I would work in between the clients or schedule myself a day off every now and then, once a week or so, every other week. Schedule a day off, and I'd go for a ride of 200, 300, 400 miles a day, and
Wow.
stop by several of the state parks, hike 7, 8 miles through those. So managed to cram a lot in during that period of time. But anyways, on this day off, I was going down one of our interstates here, and in Florida, and it's this way a lot of places, but in Florida, in the right lane, which is the slow lane, you're supposed to go 70 miles an hour. People go 80, 85 there.
Yes.
And in the middle lane, it's, 90 to 100. And then in the left lane, all bets are off. People there imagine they're training for the Daytona 500. So,
Been there, understand.
yeah. So I'm in the right lane and I'm just tooling along at the speed limit. And little old ladies on tricycles are passing me. And I don't care. It's like I'm having a good time. It's a beautiful day. There's some beautiful scenery. And I'm enjoying myself. And all of a sudden, the guys tell me that's my affectionate term for my retinue of people on the other side, my guardian angels, my guides, deceased loved ones. I just affectionately call everybody the guys. So all of a sudden, the guys speak to me and they say, move into the far left lane. Now, after all these years, I still argue, and I'm like, I don't want to move into the far left lane because it's going to take some really fancy riding to get over there. And I'm having a good time here. I'm loafing along. I'm enjoying the scenery. I'm enjoying the ride. And as fast as it takes to tell you that, they said, John, move into the far left lane now. So I'm like, okay. So I'm doing lean and weave, brake on, brake off, downshift, upshift,
Again,
throttle on,
it's
throttle off, weaving through the traffic to get over there and trying not to have too many people curse me, these damn bikers. And so I get over there in the left lane and I'm well below my high speed riding capabilities, but I just didn't want to be going that fast. I wanted to just lollygag over there at the speed limit
Ollie.
and enjoy the day.
Sure.
And as I get over there in the right lane where I just was, this car all of a sudden is hitting other cars and literally spins around facing the wrong way on the interstate. And as the guy is spinning, I look over at him and his eyes and mine actually meet as his car is spinning around.
Wow.
And detritus is blasting across the interstate like shrapnel. It's like hubcaps
Wow.
are rolling and bumpers are flying around and things
It's
like
like the
this.
big one
And I
in
managed to dodge
yeah.
all of that.
Hmm.
It's
And
like I was gonna say it's like the big one in when Daytona or Talladega. That's what I
yeah,
was gonna say
exactly,
before. Yeah.
exactly. Stuff everywhere. So I managed to dodge all of that, and I look back to see if I need to stop, but cars are already stopping to render aid and assistance, and I know somebody will have called the highway patrol. So I ride on, and the whole point of that was certainly a close call, yes, but I was totally completely spared physically, and they gave me enough warning. And the dramatic thing is that if I hadn't have listened, if I had continued to argue, if I hadn't have moved, I would have been right there running into that guy and being hit by no telling how many cars. Um, I'd have been right in the middle of the wreck. But
Wow.
because I listened and moved over, my life was spared. And the lesson that I drew from that is that we do have guardian angels. We can listen to them, pay attention to them, and if we'll do that, they will guide us, direct us, and help us. But in listening to them, it doesn't do a darn bit of good to hear them if you don't also obey them. If I had
Or listen
continued
to
to
them.
argue, boom,
Right.
that would have been the end of it. So that was one instance, and
Was
then
that your
there's
first one? Was that your
oh no,
first
I've
encounter?
been guarded and literally had my life saved many times by guardian angels over the years, even since I was a kid.
That was just the
So
big one.
is it
Oh, yeah.
is it just a voice in your head? You don't see them. It's just a voice and it's
Most of the
does it work?
time, I don't see them.
Mm,
Most of the time, it is just the impression or the voice in my
the
head.
voice.
Yeah, and like I say, I've learned to listen to that and to be obedient to that.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
that's not actually that's a pretty dramatic one, but I don't think it's the most dramatic one. In my second book, A Knock in the Attic, I write about a guardian angel experience that actually had been taking place unbeknownst to me and other family members for years.
Oh,
And then finally, the revelation of what we were being protected against came about. And it was just so mind blowing that it staggers the imagination. It makes this one look kind of small, I think, in respect. And
Did you
then
feel like
another
your
experience
mind
I
went
had
on
that, yeah, go ahead.
autopilot? I'm sorry. Did it feel like your mind went on autopilot
mm.
when you were having that close encounter, or death was just so far away and meeting the eyes where you just kind of did you feel like everything was just working? You had listened, but I don't know, like it felt empowered to the way you drove and handled the bike. Was it almost like an autopilot kind of experience too? skirt
No, I
that
was I
accident?
was extremely conscious of everything that was going on and extremely conscious of my handling of the bike. And then at the same time, extremely aware of what my guardian angels had told me, and then subsequently what was happening, and so on after that. So the whole experience was very rich, very vivid, very real. And I was, totally aware of what I was doing on the bike, how I was handling the bike, and maneuvering through all the wreckage and everything. And if anything, it heightened the reality that I was experiencing.
Does it kind of go in that slow motion effect when those traumatic things kind of happen to people?
You
You
know, it
remember
really
them almost
didn't
like
that time. It was really
slow.
strange. A lot of times it does. I remember one time, uh, what you're talking about exactly happened. I was behind this pickup truck. He was in the left lane, I was in the right lane, and he was a couple of car lengths ahead of me. And he had this table, like an end table or something, in the back bed of the pickup truck, and he didn't have it tied down. And this gust of wind caught it and blew it up out of the truck and onto the roadway. And as it started to hit and explode, it started sliding over in my direction. And during that incident, everything did go into slow motion, literally. And I was able to guide the bike around it and avoid the accident. But with this experience on the interstate there, with that time, everything stayed in real time. There was no slow motion at all. It was all in real time, which was it's kind of strange, really. I never really thought about that until you asked just now. But no, it didn't go into slow motion at all. It all stayed in real time.
Excellent. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's
You were
very
mentioning you had
interesting.
another experience that you wrote about in your latest book.
Mhm.
Similar.
Yeah, the we had been this house that I grew up in. My father had died, and my sister and I had both divorced, and we had moved back home ostensibly to take care of my ailing mother, who died not too long after that. But I think
Right.
that mainly the main reason we moved back, we both just needed to kind of a place to shelter and hide a little bit, just kind of to recover. And my parents had gone through a lot of financial difficulties, and as the house aged, they didn't have money to repair it or to take care of it, and everything in it was gas. We had gas floor furnaces. You don't even see those anymore. And we had gas space heaters. Hot water heater was gas. The range, the oven, the cook stove was gas. Um, so we had not been able, over the years, my parents had not been able to maintain um, any of that. And so as a result, things were just falling apart, literally. And when me and my sister moved back home, our finances weren't any great shakes at the time, and we couldn't afford to pitch in and repair things. We did the best we could, and for all of the years that I had lived in the old house or come back to visit, or then when we finally moved in, we would smell this odor, and the pipes, all the plumbing underneath the house was disintegrating, beginning to leak. So we just presumed it was like a plumbing odor, plumbing leak, and we wrote it off as that. So the other interesting thing then is that from the time I was a kid on up into my adulthood, we always loved to burn like candles and incense. We always had a lot of candles burning at Christmas, things like that. We like to burn incense. And that's something I continued into adulthood. So when I moved back home, I had candles and incense going all the time, all this type of thing. And of course, all the open flames from the heaters and, cooking and all those type of things. We used to have dinner parties and have a lot of people over and cook a lot. So my mother had died, and I had come in one day, and it was a really pretty sunny day, but it was chilly. And when my mother had died, I would turn off most of the gas appliances, gas heaters, and everything in the house when I left. Then when I came home, I'd turn on just enough to warm up the house, then turn everything down or turn off what I didn't need. And my sister was still living there at the time, and so I had come in and sit down, and my bedroom windows faced the west, where the sun was setting. And as it was setting, it was casting shadows on my bedspread through the tree branches. And I would see this kind of flickering over on my bedspread. I was sitting there in my recliner watching TV. And there was some news story on I was really interested in, so I was focused on that. But I kept seeing this flicker over here, and I thought, well, that's just the sun, flickering through the trees, and didn't really pay much attention to it. And then something happened that really got my attention, and so I looked over there, and I was absolutely horrified. There was this tongue of flame about 6 or 8 inches long, burning out in a tongue, a long tongue, like a little dagger,
Oh my gosh.
out of the inlet pipe in the heater in my bathroom, the wall heater in my bathroom. And I looked at that and I was like, oh my God. And it took me a second before I realized what was happening, before I could get up out of my chair. So I went over there and I looked, and there was this large hole that had somehow developed in the metal inlet pipe, the gas pipe into the heater. And now the heater was still going, right? Still lit, but this tongue of flame was shooting up out of the hole about 6, 8 inches into the air, just this long, straight tongue of flame. And I was like,
Right.
Wow.
oh my God, the whole house is going to blow any second.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's not right.
That's no, it's
yeah. So I
yeah.
turned the heater off, and the grates, the everything there went out, but the tongue of flame continued to burn. So I ran and called the gas company emergency number and told them what was happening. I said, what do I do? They said, do you have a wrench? And I said, yes. I've had a lot of mechanical ability. And so I always had tools. And they said, do you know where the gas meter is located? And I said, yeah. And they said, go turn it off right now. And we're
Hurry.
dispatching emergency crews as we speak. So I said, okay. So I went outside, turned the gas meter off, walked back inside, looked, half expecting the flame to still be burning for some reason. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but it was out, thank God. So the gas company got there shortly thereafter, and we were getting into the early stages of twilight. This was in the winter, and in January, I believe it was. And so he pulled up in the alley behind our house, and he said, "Where's your gas meter?" And I said, "Well, it's right there by your truck." It was kind of getting dark, and he hadn't seen it when he pulled in. So he said, "Okay." And so he said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "No fires in the house or anything?" I said, "No, thank God, everything's okay." So he took out this handheld gas meter, and he turned it on, and it immediately squealed and pegged the needle.
Oh boy.
And he looked at it and he was like, "What in the world?" And he turned it off and he turned it back on and did the same thing. And he said, "Man, this thing, I need to get another one or something. This thing must be malfunctioning." So he turned it off, turned it back on. We started walking toward the house, and it kept squealing, kept pegging the needle. And we got up to the house, and he said, "Man, can you smell that?" And I said, "What?" He said, "That gas odor, that's overpowering." And so we went inside, and he turned the meter on, and the needle pegged, and it screamed. And he went, "Oh my God." He said, "The meter's not wrong." He said, "The alley's full of gas, the yard's full of gas, the house is full of gas." He said, "Get these doors and windows open now as fast as you can. I'll help." And so we started opening doors and windows to try and vent the house. And he went out on the front porch and started taking deep breaths. And he said, "Man, aren't you?" He said, "This is making me dizzy. Isn't it affecting you?" And I said, "Well, no, not really." And
Wow.
so we walked back in, and with all the doors and windows open we could open, several minutes later, he turned the meter on. It was still peaking. So the gas hadn't cleared out, and he said, "Man, there's something wrong here. I don't know what this is, but there's something really wrong here." So about this time, another emergency truck from the gas company had come up, pulled up behind him, and we all went outside. And he was explaining to the guy what had happened, and said, "Watch this." And he turned on the gas meter, and it squealed again, peaked again. And he said, "Well, how bad was the guy burned?" And he said, "Well, he wasn't. That's him right there." And the guy's like, "No, you're kidding me." He said, "Come here and I'll show you." So he went inside. He shows him the hole in the inlet pipe in the bathroom heater. And so they experiment some more. And in spite of the doors and windows being open, the meter's still pegging, still going off. And he said, "I can't believe that you use the phone, had an old landline phone, and that causes a spark when you use it, when you dial and
Sure.
everything." He
Yeah.
said, "I can't believe you used that, didn't blow sky high." And I said, "Oh, on top of that, we had one of those old button switches in the light switch in the dining room there that sparks. So you can see the spark when you push it. And I
Oh
had used
man.
that to turn on the light before I had called."
Oh wow.
So he says, I can't believe none of this. This is just crazy. This is just insane." And both of them told me, they said, "This is a Christmas miracle. It's late, but it's a Christmas miracle." They said this
Sure.
house should have been blown to kingdom come a long time ago. The
Mm.
neighborhood should have been reduced to rubble. I don't want to be gruesome, but y'all should have been dead a long time ago. He said this
Wow.
is a Christmas miracle, literally. So he said, what we have to do, he said, we'll pull the gas meter and cap everything off. We got to put a new meter in, and you'll have to call a plumber, and they'll have to come out and fix the lines, and we'll come reset the new meter and everything. So I said, okay. So the plumbers came out. The next day I came in, my sister came home, and she called and she says, hey, you want Kentucky Fried Chicken for dinner? And I said, yeah, that'd be great, because this is what's just happened. We ain't got nothing to cook with.
Sure.
So she was all freaked out, right? And so anyways, the next day I went on to work, and when I came home, she had the plumbers out, and they had found 17 major gas leaks.
Come
The
on.
the gas
Oh my
meter
gosh.
leaked, the line into the house leaked, all the appliances in the house leaked, every single thing, all the appliances in the house leaked, all together
Wow.
17 quote unquote major leaks. And they said that what they do to test the lines, they pump up air, and then they have a mercury meter, kind of like a blood pressure gauge, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they open up the lines, let the air, that they forced into it, let that go, and they see how fast that meter drops to see how bad the leaks are. And they said, John, when we opened up the lines, the meter would immediately plunge to zero. Not slowly, it would immediately go to zero. That's how bad the leaks were. 17 major leaks altogether. So it was literally the guardian angels had been for decades, had been protecting us from certain fiery,
It
gruesome
was almost
death
like
in that home,
they repressed it, and that's why you were able to see it as this kind of like 8-inch, tongue of fire, as you described
right,
it. It
right.
really should have been blown out in the room because there was gas in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
they contained it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
They saved me. They compressed it to where I could see it and see what was going on. So that's another example. Like I say, I've had many over the years, and I always tell people, talk to your guardian angels, ask for protection, and then listen, and then do what they tell you. And people are like, well, I call them my guardian angels. I had a traffic accident. Yeah, but were you paying attention? Were you listening when you had that accident?
Right.
Maybe you were told, don't go down that street, or leave 15 minutes later, or whatever. Did you heed that? Did you listen to that? And then in the final analysis, we're all going to go. Maybe we do have our appointed times, and maybe that's what comes around for some people. But I think in the main, overall, that if we will ask for our guardian angels protection, listen, and then do what they tell us, I think we can save ourselves a lot of grief. Look, it's like the World Trade Center towers. The people in the World Trade Center towers were told, everything's okay. It's going to be all right. Help's coming. Go back to your desks and go back to work. Now look, if the stuff's hitting the fan, people get out of there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right,
there's a
right.
lot of practical things you can do to save yourself.
I know
Right.
you mentioned that you call them the guys,
Right.
but I didn't get if you have an association as far as who they are. Yeah, some people consider their guardian angels to be things like actual angels, like Raphael, Michael,
Mm.
especially Michael, Gabriel, etc. Others give them an ancestral value. They feel like their guardian angels were past relatives,
Right.
things of that nature. Do you have any feeling about who they are, who the guys are?
I think that some of them are what we would call literal angels. I think that some of them are what we would deem spirit guides, called spirit guides.
Mhm.
Some of them are ancestral, or friends that I've known that have crossed over. And then some are entities that are just other classifications that are not angels, that are not deceased loved ones, that are not guardian angels per se, not spirit guides per se. They're their own thing, and that's
Mhm.
kind of hard to tap into and define what is, because they don't always tell me exactly who or what they are. They don't necessarily give me names. They can make me aware of their energies, of their presence, of kind of vaguely what they're like. And that's the other part of who's there. And that gets very interesting. I think there's some nature spirits there that are involved, that type of thing.
Mhm.
And like I say, other spirits that, who are they? What are they? We don't exactly know. And they kind of defy classification sometimes.
Mhm.
All right,
I
like
agree.
elementals or even
Yeah,
fairy like things. Yeah.
right.
Sure.
That's really interesting. So you had all these experiences with the protective angels. How did you get involved with the paranormal from there?
Well,
or investigating, I should say.
and investigating, yeah. When I was about 12 years old, I began to be obsessed with studying religion, psychology, parapsychology, the paranormal, the occult, spirituality, everything. And it was a search for the truth, what works and what doesn't, because there's a lot out there that just doesn't work. And my emphasis on things as a young boy growing into manhood and then up to and continuing even now is it has to be practical, it has to be truthful, it has to work in the physical realm, in the real world. Now I'm not going to denigrate people that, there's a lot of people that write books or start religions or start movements or have theories, and it's just that it's something that they've envisioned or gotten a dream or they meditated and something came to them. And the problem of that is none of it works in the physical realm, and we have to deal with the physical realm. If you don't believe we do, try not eating for a week. You'll find out real quick we have to meet the earth on its own terms, right?
Sure.
So, with what I mean by practicality, and let's face it, in religion, there's a lot of phonies and frauds and con artists, especially among the big name evangelists. In the psychic realm, there's a ton of phonies and frauds and con artists. And my issue was always, okay, let's find out what's real. Let's find out what's truthful. Let's weed through the fake stuff, the silly stuff, the weird stuff that doesn't work. And let's get to something that does work in a way that helps us. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example from a friend that I've made on one of the podcasts that I'm on regularly. And he gave me this testimonial, and I put it on my website, and then he talked about it in the podcast. Just out of the blue, the guys told me, said, "Hey, send this email to this guy. He needs to hear this right now." I was like, okay. So the essence of the email was that don't be engaging in any weird health treatments or any weird health fads or any weird supplements or anything like that. That's going to short circuit whatever good life you've got left. And you've got several good years left, and you're basically in good health. But you can short circuit that if you get involved in this kind of stuff. So I sent that to him, told him to holler at me if he needed any more info. And like I say, that was just an email. The guys told me to send it. I did. And there it was. So about 2 months later, I was back on his show again. And we were talking before we went live. And he said, "Do you remember that email you sent me?" And I said, "Well, of course I do." And he said, "Now, don't say anything. Don't formulate any ideas in your head. Don't just, but that's the first thing we're going to talk about when we go on the air." And I said, "Okay." So the upstart of it was that he had this guest on that had been sending him these supplements to take, and he had taken them and got sicker than a dog.
Oh, geez.
And short thing, long story short, he said, "John, you may have saved my life, literally, and at the very least, you saved my health." And he
Wow.
said that about 3 or 4 times during the show. And so to me, that's what practical use of spiritual gifts or psychic gifts is it has to be helpful. It has to work in the real world. It has to produce a real result, and it has to produce a helpful result. So that's what I've always striven to do. And, like I said, that came to me very early because I had this perception. I could see how phony people were, how they manipulated things, how they preached or talked or said they practiced one thing and then they did something entirely different, and I was like, okay, this is not right. This isn't true. And then I saw a lot of people that proclaimed that they could produce a certain effect or do a certain thing or whatever, and they never could. And I said, okay, that's a lie. That doesn't work. And then as I got older, I became aware of the machinations of the big name evangelists that would hold the big miracle meetings and the subsequent investigation of those people by mainstream media, where they never found any real healing. Nothing lasts. Nothing was credible. Nothing worked. And I remember they even asked one of them, they said, you state all these things, you claim all those things, but we've talked to all these people and they're not well. They didn't get sick. Some of them have died. And his only response was, "Yeah, I kind of wonder about that myself."
Oh,
It's
my
like,
goodness.
come on. And then of course you go into
Yeah.
the psychic realm, and it's you've got all these people. I rescue clients to this day that John, I just fell into this phony psychic for $10,000 or $20,000
That's
or whatever,
nuts.
you know. And so that was
Right.
my burning passion with this, to like, okay, it's real, yes, but we have to seek out what's truthful and what's good in the real, and it has to be practical in our everyday lives, or otherwise it's just a parlor trick, you know.
Sure.
Absolutely. What you're saying actually reminds me a little bit of the spiritualist movement, evangelical things, even modern day paranormal media,
Right.
where, you might have started off with good intentions,
Yeah.
things like the Fox sisters are coming to mind, and
Yeah.
Yuri Geller in the 70s and things like that,
Mm.
and be able to do certain things. And then, when you're forced to do it on the spot, it isn't necessarily reproducible
Right. Right.
for everybody at all times, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Especially if there's like a camera on or something.
Yeah.
We were talking to Dr. Joe Gallenberger last week, and he
Hmm.
mentioned
Yeah.
we were talking about PK and psychokinesis.
Oh yeah, the
And
telekinesis. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, psychokinesis and a ability to do things in parapsychology.
Right.
And if you tried to fall asleep in front of a million people watching,
Yeah.
I couldn't give you $1 million, you wouldn't be able to fall asleep. Your mind would be racing, right? But of course, you sleep every
Right.
night. And it's kind of like that. People,
Exactly.
expectations get put upon people to, you're healed, you're
Yeah.
this or that, and it may have started off with good intentions, but sometimes it'll drift, and then it's not really real anymore because they have to do
Well,
it
in
week after week
addition to
after week.
that, the other side plays peekaboo with us, doggone it. You know,
They
we
do. There is a trickster element there, just
There
there's a
like
really
trickster out there.
is.
We don't always get what we ask for. You know, you go to a paranormal investigation and your energy's right, the all the energy's right, the atmosphere's right, the environment's right, and not a darn thing happens, you know. And then another time you can stumble along into something, not even thinking about anything, and boom, you're assaulted with all these paranormal manifestations. So
Sure.
it's a peekaboo thing, and all respects to some that say otherwise. You can't make an appointment with a UFO. You know, you just
True.
can't do it. And it's I've seen a jillion of them. I've interacted with some of them. I don't know whose they are or where they come from or what that. My speculation is that they're different races coming from off planet, but haven't been able to make an appointment with them. And I did interact with one in a way that was pretty mind blowing, and we can discuss that if you want to. That's
Oh, absolutely. I love that analogy. And I can't make an appointment. It's like, yeah, let me put that alien abduction on my Outlook calendar. And
yeah,
yeah, I'll see
This
you,
time
exactly,
I'll bring. This
between
time I'll
3 and
bring the
4 on
probe.
Tuesday.
One of those. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, do tell. Thank you.
Well, this I was sitting out in my courtyard here, and love to look at the night sky. I have ever since I was a kid, and it was a beautiful, clear night, and I had a big, wide view of the sky. And over to the right of me, and Venus was out. Venus was out, very, very clear and bright, and about in the sky, appearing about the same size as Venus. And Venus was very big and bright that night. Came this orange orb floating along off over to my easterly direction, and kind of heading to the north. And I looked at that and I said, oh, look at that plane coming around. And then as I looked at it, there were no lights blinking. And then as I looked closer, it was this translucent orange orb. And I was like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
UFO. And so it came around, went kind of in a northerly direction, got right in front of me. And it was basically right, like right up here. I'm looking at it. And I literally stood up and I mentally and verbally said, hey, if you can hear me, stop, and then move backward a little bit. And lo and behold, the darn thing stopped, backed up in the sky a little bit, and then in less than a split second's time, shot up about the distance of where now it's real down low. It's like where we live close to an airport, and the little Cessnas are flying around down here and everything. That's about where
Sure.
it's at. Well, in less than a split second time, it shoots up to where the big airliners are, where you can see them in the night sky at night. And it hovers there a little bit. And then in less than a split second time, it shot up into the stars and moved around there for just a little bit, and then shot off into the heavens and disappeared. No sound, no sonic boom, no nothing. And I was just so gobsmacked. I sat back down and I was like, good Lord Almighty. And so the astonishing thing was, it scares me that anything's out there that can do that, that just totally goes outside of all laws of physics and everything
Mhm.
else. And then the fact that I could communicate with it and it would respond to me, but then wouldn't give me any more information than that. It's just, hey, we see you, we're gone out of here, and just blow my mind, you know?
Sure.
Right.
So that was not my first UFO experience. My first UFO experience, I didn't believe in UFOs. I was about, I guess, close to 20, and I had already had all this plethora of paranormal experiences, just mind blowing stuff, and was working as a psychic by then professionally, and just didn't believe in UFOs. I'd read the magazines, read the books, read the literature, seen the interviews, and it was like, no, 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 don't believe it.
Yeah,
No,
not for me.
don't ring. So I was at this place I had left out, and I was didn't have a bike then. I had a car, and it was parked across the street in this parking lot, a narrow 2-lane street. I could step out the door and see my car over there in the parking lot. Didn't have far to walk to it. And so I stepped out the door, and this is back when I was living in West Texas, and you get all kinds of hideous weather, tornadoes. We're on the tip end of a tornado alley, and you get all these thunderstorms and everything else. And the weather does weird things there. I've seen the sky turn green, and I've seen rain come down and hover a little bit and just kind of spin around before it dropped to the ground, all kinds of weird stuff. So I step out the door, and this blast of wind hits me in the face, and it's overcast. And I look around and say, oh, we must be about to have a thunderstorm or maybe even a tornado watch or whatever. So I think, well, I'll make a run for my car. And I look over in the parking lot where my car is. And coming down in a column from the clouds up above is this columnar cloud that's attached to the parking lot. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, now in all my years in this kind of weather, this is something new I haven't seen before. So as I'm watching it and trying to figure out what to do, and it's kind of not rotating so much, it's just kind of undulating and kind of doing this thing. And as it's doing that, there are these globules of glowing light that come forth almost out of the cloud and then recede back into it. And they're all over doing it that way from top to bottom. Some of them are red, some of them are orange, yellow, green, purple. And the first thought that I had, Chris and Kristen, honest to God, was, okay, I've gone nuts. I've had a stroke. Something's happened to my brain. I'm this young guy, and now my life is over. I'm crazy.
What am I seeing here? Yeah.
What am I seeing? I'm
Does not sound
hallucinating. This is
natural.
it. This is the end.
I'm just gonna walk to, the guy with
Yeah,
the red with
I'm
the white
just
coat.
just go to the hospital and check myself in. So I'm sitting there watching this thing, and I get this irrational urge to walk toward it. I said, well, this is really stupid. So I take about 2 or 3 steps toward it, and it moves toward me. And I stop, and it stops, and I back up, and it backs up. And I take a few more steps toward it, and it moves toward me, and I back up, and it backs up. So I'm sitting there looking at this thing. And another interesting thing I noticed, besides all the odd behavior and the glowing orbs coming out and receding, is down in the parking lot at the base of this thing, there's debris in the parking lot, papers, litter, paper cups, all that type of stuff. And it's not blowing anything around. Nothing's moving. Everything around the cloud is totally, completely still. And I said, okay. And about this time, the door whacks me in the back, and this buddy of mine comes out and goes, oh man, sorry, what are you doing standing so close to the door? And before I can even answer, he looks up the clouds and he goes, oh boy, it looks like we're in for one. And then he looks across the parking lot and he goes, what in the world is that? I said, okay, I haven't gone crazy. He sees it too. So I said, watch this. And I walk toward it, and it moves toward me, and I back up, and it backs up. And I walk toward it, it moves toward me, and I back up, and it backs up. And I look over at him. I said, isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever seen? He looks at me like I'm the weirdest thing he's ever seen. He said, bye. And he runs down the alley. His car is the opposite way, and he leaves. I was like, okay, so here I am again alone with this thing. So about that time, it sucks back up into the clouds above, and things begin to move over. And I'm like, okay, I run for my car, get in. I'm like, what in the world? So I pull out of the parking lot, and I know the town like the back of my hand. I know all the streets I'm on and everything. And cars are angle parked on the streets. I had angle parking there all the way up and down the streets. And we had a Sears Roebuck there in town, Sears Roebuck store, and they had a big parking lot in the back of the store. And they had one of the best sporting goods sections on the planet. I used to love to go in there and look at the sporting goods. So I pull out and it starts to rain. Now, this is not one of those everything's bigger in Texas stories, but I mean, in Texas, in 20 minutes, it can leave your yard standing in water, flood, underpasses, all that kind of thing. But this is like any rain I have ever seen before. I've never seen rain like this. It starts coming down so hard. I've got my wipers on high, I turn my lights on, and then it increases to the point that I literally cannot see 1 or 2 feet beyond the hood of my car.
Wow.
And I look over out my passenger window and I cannot see the cars that are angle parked on the side of the street. And I'm starting to panic because I'm like, damn, I'm going to hit somebody. Somebody's going to hit me. I'm going to sideswipe one of these cars.
Yeah.
And about that time, I see the glow of the traffic light through the rain and pick up this car's taillights in front of me. And I screech to a halt and avoid hitting him by a few inches. I think the car behind me avoided hitting me by a few inches. He was stopped there at the traffic light. And I'm like, this is insane. Well, I knew where the street was. It was a street that led to the back parking lot there at Sears. And I said, if I can make it around this corner without hitting somebody, without hitting one of these angle park cars and somebody hitting me, if I can see the entrance to the parking lot, I'll just pull in there. And I don't care how wet I get. I'll just run in. I'll wait out the storm. I'll go down.
Wait it out. Yeah.
So we're driving along like that, putting along, and we're going like a mile or 2 an hour. I mean, you can't see anything at all. The windshield wipers are doing absolutely no good. I have to stay within like a foot or 2 feet of the car's bumper and taillights in front of me to even see it. I have never been in rain like that in my life. And I'm driving along and I was holding onto the steering wheel and I leaned over to look out the passenger window to see if I could get any glimpse of the cars that were parallel parked at all or angle parked at all. And as I was leaned over in the seat like that, now keep in mind, it's raining that hard. And 1 second later, it wasn't. It didn't clear off. It didn't slack off. It didn't start slowing off. It was just 1 second. You couldn't see 2 feet past the hood of the car. The next second, full visibility had returned. There wasn't even a mist hitting my windshield. I could see all the way down the street, look in my rearview mirror, see all the way that way, look all around me, perfect visibility. It was still overcast, but perfect visibility had returned. And I mean, literally 1 second's time. Literally 1 second it was raining that hard. Count it. 1001. Now it's not.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I said, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So
yeah.
About this time, people in the oncoming lane of traffic started swerving over toward us, and people were honking their horns. People were jamming on their brakes, and people all of a sudden started jumping out of their cars and pointing up to the sky and rolling down their car windows and pointing up to the sky. And I'm like, what in the world? So
what is going on?
I look up over the Sears building, and about 30 feet over the top of the Sears building is a silver metallic UFO hovering there over the Sears building, about 30 to 50 feet in diameter, just hovering there. And that's what everybody is. And I literally did a cartoon eye rub. I literally did a cartoon eye rub. And I look back up, and sure enough, there it sits, just hovering there. And that's what everybody had been honking, pointing at, jumping out of their cars. So I thought, well, I'm going to get out and get a better look at this thing too. So I reached for my car door handle, and when I did, the clouds just started coming up behind the UFO, and it moved just barely perceptibly, and the clouds covered it over. And the second that the clouds covered it over, the rain was back in full force again. Didn't start up again. It was just instantly back in full force.
Wow.
So this guy in front of me, I stayed on his tail, and he starts turning into the parking lot. And I said, I don't care if I hit this guy, the insurance will cover it. I'm going to talk to this guy because I still don't believe what I've seen.
Right.
In spite of all these other people seeing it before I did. So I parked by him, and we're not even parked in parking spaces. We're just stopping the cars. You can't see nothing. And he jumps out and runs for the store. So I jump out and run for the store, and the rain hurts. It's coming down so hard. It literally hurts. And I shield my eyes and I run into the store. Well, Sears had a vestibule there, and you stopped inside, and there was another double set of doors to go through into the store. And in the vestibule, there were stairs that went down to the basement. So he was stopped there on one of those mats you wipe your feet on, and he was just standing there. I remember he had his head hung down. He wore glasses. I didn't at the time. And water was beaded up on his glasses, and he was just dripping water, just standing there, just staring down. And I walked around in front of him, and I said, excuse me, buddy, but did you see what I just saw? And he looked up at me and he said, yeah, but I damn sure ain't going to tell nobody. and he sidestepped me and walked on through the store. And you have to remember, this is back like, sometime in the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, somewhere around in there, that if you told anybody you believed in UFOs, you were a
Yeah,
nutcase.
Yeah, right. And get the
absolutely.
jacket ready.
So that was
Yeah.
the response there. But
Mm.
but my experience then was that, okay, I have to change religions now, because the truth of the matter is, there they are. I have to believe. I've seen this in the presence of witnesses. So I got to change denominations, sports fans. I gotta join the train here. I got to jump on the train. And that was the first experience I had that let me know that they indeed do exist. And then, like I say, I've had, many since then, but
What
still
did
no
the
closer to understanding who or what they are. And the best UFO researchers we've got don't have a clue. Um, excuse me. I
what did
firmly
the
believe that
saucer
our
look like
government does.
to you?
Oh, yes.
The saucer itself, when you saw it, did it look like something you would have imagined a flying saucer to look like at that time, or what did it appear as?
Yeah, it was the stereotypical inverted pie plates, shiny
Okay.
metallic, no
Yeah.
seams, no windows, no doors, no.
And it was new to you. So I ask you
The
this
top.
because over time, of the public consciousness of what a UFO is supposed to look like is kind of what they see, right? So they started off with the kind of the saucers, and then they turn into the sort of triangular
Cigar
thing,
shapes and
Yeah.
cigar shapes, and
Well, I think the
yeah.
reason for that is, now there's a lot of sightings that are not really popular or made public, or that a lot of people don't know about, that they had those shapes even back then. Because I talked to a buddy of mine, he was a major in the Air Force, and he's on the other side now, and he was a real good friend of mine. And he not only was in the Air Force, he'd done work for the NSA and all kinds of stuff, and had top secret clearances and so on. Now, he never violated his non-disclosure agreement to me, but he did tell me some things that he had seen, and some things that he could tell me without violating that NDA and his government secrecy and everything. He did tell me some things, and there were craft way back that had these shapes even back then, and people just, it just wasn't popularized. I don't think, not that many people talked about it. But another thing we have to consider in saying, well, we're seeing more of these different types of crafts. There's got to be more than one civilization out there piloting these things.
absolutely.
So Cadillac builds Cadillac, Oldsmobile builds Oldsmobiles. Maybe this race builds a triangular craft, this race builds
Right.
Sure.
a
That's
round craft or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah, it's the
as
big
good an
question.
explanation as any. I just find it fascinating. Like the majority of them do seem to fit almost the timeline. And so,
Right.
but did they improve the Oldsmobile from the 50s, or
Yeah.
is this a whole nother race? And it's certainly
Right.
people get into, all the Octurians, and they have it broken
And the
down in ways,
reptilians,
the
yeah.
Greys, and
Yeah.
certain
The
things.
Nords.
That all
Which we
seem
don't know, that's the heck
hard
of it. We
to
don't know.
Right.
put your
It's
finger
all
on.
speculation,
There's a lot of
Exactly.
secrecy there,
It's
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's theories. That's all they can, we can come up
Well,
with
it's all
theories
theories and
for
it's all
government.
speculation. And I think the government knows. And when the government will finally come out and tell us, hey, now my problem with the UFOs, and I've got a problem with the UFOs. People paint
Do
the
tell.
UFO brothers as benign or benevolent or whatever, and they always
Benevolent,
drag out the
yeah.
tired old saw of, well, with this advanced technology, they could have destroyed us or enslaved us or whatever. Okay.
Sure.
I don't go for this, and I'll tell you why. This is the analogy that I've been using lately. The analogy is, I see Chris and Kristen on the side of the road with a flat tire. I don't know you from Adam. It's not going to make me a better person or help me financially or anything else to stop and help you, but I'm going to do it. You're a fellow human being. I've got compassion. I'm going to pull over. Hey,
Exactly.
guys, you got a jack? Yeah, but we don't know how to use it. Well, I do. I'll jack it up and change your tire for you. Or, hey, you got a jack? No. Well, do you have AAA? No. Well, I do. Well, I'll call AAA and I'll wait till they come out. We'll put it on my tab. We'll get you fixed. We'll get you going. Okay.
Yeah.
Most people still have a modicum of compassion, right?
Right.
So if we extrapolate that, we live by extrapolation. If we extrapolate that out there in this vast universe of all these supposedly highly evolved, highly intelligent people, aren't there then by extrapolation some people out there, some aliens, some entities, some beings out there that have some compassion? Wouldn't they look at the earth and go, dang, we can't go down there and stop the volcanoes or the earthquakes or the floods or the tornadoes or the hurricanes. That's just part and parcel of the environment until
Sure.
we could figure out some way to change it. But, we kicked cancer's butt a long time ago. How about we go down there and we send a message out to one of these researchers and say, meet us in the woods. And when they meet us in the woods, instead of abducting them and doing horrific experiments on them, we give them a slip of paper and we say, take this to a chemist and compound this, give it to the kids in St. Jude, and we're going to cure all the kids' cancer.
Oh, yes.
How
There you
about
go.
that? Throw us a
Yep.
bone, guys, if you're this smart,
Exactly.
this intelligent, this advanced, throw us a stinking bone. But what do? They grab us, take us off, do horrific experiments
New
on us,
probes.
Barney and Betty Hill, Travis
Yeah.
Walton, et
Yes.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, I don't see benevolence there. I don't see compassion. I don't see kindness. And so that's the thing that worries me about this whole shtick. No
I
denying that
believe.
they're there, but they're not really making any kind of effort to help us out any. And
Right.
Right.
then what I say too is, okay, they break rank, they come, they land on the White House lawn. Here they are.
Mhm.
Hoopla. All right. Now we still
Always
have
the White
issues.
House lawn.
Take
Right
me
now.
to
Yeah.
your leader.
Always.
Yeah.
It can't be anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, right. It can't be anywhere else. Got to be the White House lawn.
Yeah.
Couldn't be the Kremlin.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So here's the issue that we still have. Two big issues that we still have. You meet somebody and you don't know what kind of person they are. You take a while to get to know them. They may be a convincing liar, but they may be a manipulator, a thief, a drug addict, going to steal you blind, whatever. You take a while to get to know that person before you trust yourself to them. Well, guess what? These people reveal themselves. We're going to have that same interplay. It's going to be a while before we can know that we can trust them. How do we know that what they're telling us is right or the truth or whatever? We don't. It's going to
Right.
take that learning curve, that time to be able to interact and to trust. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, and this is the biggest thing to me, it still doesn't answer the spiritual component. Somebody made them who? We still have that spiritual component to deal with. We still have that creator story to search for, because
Mhm.
all of this is made by somebody. And I know there's a lot of people that's real popular to now to say, oh, the aliens made us. Great. Okay, fine. Who made them?
True.
There's
Exactly. It's a good
there's that
question.
creation story, that creator that we still have to search for. So, man,
Mhm.
we got a long way to go here. And the disclosure, so-called, the dribs and drabs of things that have been coming out are just,
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. What do you think about the government now telling us that there are aliens and they do exist? In your opinion, in my opinion, I think there's something bigger now for them to come out and say, yeah, oh yeah, there is. Here's this, here's that. The tic
yeah,
tac, blah blah blah. But I think there's something bigger that they're either trying
priming the pump.
to. Yeah, in your opinion, what do
Yeah.
you think about that?
Subtle disclosure that's
Yeah,
been going on, especially lately with the
Yeah.
is
Tic
it
Well,
Tacs
is
and
it
the
a
flying pyramids
distraction
and
for something bigger to come? I don't know.
it may
supposed
be,
Pentagon.
we don't know,
It's
we
just odd.
speculate, but the Pentagon has admitted in mainstream news sources that they have anomalous UFO debris in their possession that they've studied. The Pentagon's mentioned that. Okay,
Hmm.
we have Lou Elizondo, we have the New York Post, New York Times that has blown this stuff up, covered all these stories. We have the fighter jet videos.
Right, the
Um,
Tic Tacs,
we have the former
pyramids.
director of national intelligence saying, yes, these things are real. We picked them up on multiple satellites, multiple sensors. There have been multiple witnesses, not just what you're hearing about. And he said that in a news conference that he was trying to get all that disclosed during the Trump administration, but they didn't get it out. And he hoped that somebody still would. That's the former director of national intelligence said that.
Hmm.
The problem is that it goes back to what Senator Harry Reid said. He said, this is the tip of the iceberg. He said, the government knows and is sitting on a ton of stuff and won't reveal it, and the people need to know it. Harry Reid's made that statement. I paraphrase him, but he's made that statement several times. So we have to get to the bottom line of, why is there no reasonable disclosure instead of this little carrot on the stick that we're supposed to be satisfied with? I say that if they disclose tomorrow, most people are going to go, well, yeah, I've seen them. We
Hmm.
believe that. We knew that. Here it is. Is it going to destroy organized religion? No, people are still going to believe what they're going to believe. They're going to be
Sure.
holding prayer groups for the aliens. They'll go and circle the ship and Jesus saved these people and all this,
Right.
you know. So it's not going to destroy organized religion. I don't think there'll be mass panic in the streets. There
Yeah.
will be, and coming from Texas, being raised in Texas, West Texas, I can tell you this, in all sincerity and without besmirching anybody. Like I say, I'm an old Texas boy. There will
Mhm.
be some old boys with their shotguns going, let's go get them rascals.
That's it.
There'll be some of that, but that's the case with anything. And I think, that when full true disclosure actually does happen, I don't think it's going to be that big a shock to that many people. I don't think it's going to disrupt our life that much. I don't think it's going to disrupt organized religion. Obviously, there will be adaptations. Obviously, there'll be a lot of learning and some interaction.
Mhm.
Um, but in all of this, I go back to one thing that was interesting that Giorgio Sukala said, Ancient
Mhm.
Aliens guy.
Yep.
I
Right.
saw him on the Contact in the Desert panel 2020
Mhm.
that was hosted by George Noory. It's on YouTube.
Yes.
And Giorgio Sukala says he thinks that the Space Force is a great idea because he said, let's assume these guys are benevolent or at least benign or whatever. What if some of them aren't? How do we defend ourselves?
Right. I
And
agree with
so
you. Him.
he
Yeah.
thinks it's a good idea. And look, the world is what it is. You have to take care of yourself. You have to be prepared to defend yourself. You have to recognize there's predators, two-legged, four-legged, spiritual, whatever, and you take normal steps to protect yourself. And I think you do the same with other unknowns. You don't want to be hostile or have animosity, but you want to be cautious. You want to say,
Right.
okay, and what if one species you interact with is friendly and another one's hostile?
Sure.
And you have to learn that and have to adapt to that and have to work through that. So
Would
it's
some
going
of
to be,
them defend us, against those hostile ones,
yeah, you would
malevolence?
hope that would be the case, that there would be some intervention there that would be of help. So man, it's all out there in left field and it's all speculation, and we'll know when we know.
Right. I was
Right,
just
right. It certainly is a lot of speculation, but it is your feeling that when you see those photographs of, say, the flying pyramids and the
Mhm.
Tic Tacs, so recent, times,
Right.
that they are absolutely extraterrestrial and not that of another government that's earthbound.
That's my feeling, is that they are extraterrestrial. Yes, that they're directed by or piloted by extraterrestrial intelligences.
Speaking of that, I think you had an experience in Roswell, New Mexico, the
Yeah.
museum. Could you please tell us about that?
And that goes back to,
It's all like cliche, it's like
right, but
yeah.
that goes back to the interaction with the problems with our government. Is I had gone, they had a deal called Alien Encounter 98, and Stanton Friedman lectured there, and a lot of other people, but I got to see Stanton Friedman lecture, and I was there giving readings, psychic readings. And so one morning before my day started, I went downtown to the Roswell UFO Museum, and I got there before it opened. So I was standing around on the sidewalk looking through the windows and everything. And this woman walked by. And for some bizarre reason, she stopped and we struck up a conversation. And she said, do you live here? I said, no. I said, as a matter of fact, I was born in Carlsbad, but hardly have ever been back to New Mexico. And my first time in Roswell. And she said, "Oh, is this your first time at the UFO museum?" And I said, "Yeah, this is." So it was I got to see it. I have to, since I'm here, it's a must see.
Sure.
And she asked me what I did, and I said, "Well, oddly enough, I'm a psychic." I said, "I'm here giving readings at Alien Encounter 98." She goes, "Oh, how interesting." So we get to talking, and she absolutely blows my hair back. She said, "When my brother and I were young, when we were kids, we were outside playing and we saw the craft come over and crash off over in the distance. And we could tell that it was in trouble. And she said it wasn't a plane, it wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't an experimental, aircraft, wasn't a weather balloon, whatever, wasn't military. It was a UFO. And we saw it crash over in the distance. And she said at that time in town, that there were government people and military people and people they didn't even know who were that would come to people and say, if you mention any of this, if you talk about any of this, you and your family's bones will be found out in the desert sand.
Come on.
Now, that's her
Wow.
quote to me. That's what she said.
Oh, that's
And about that time, she snapped her head up and down the street this way a couple of times and said, I've said too much. I'm going to go. Bye. And
wow.
walked off. And that's how strong, after all those years, that her fear still was from this episode. So that gives you an idea of what happened to people, how they were threatened, and how they were treated during that time frame. And what she said was corroborated by a lot of people that that have been on documentaries and things, and they talked about how they were threatened, how they were told to shut up, and so on and so forth.
Mm.
So that was how they were dealt with. And a lot of the problem is, I'm always telling people, doggone it, come forth, speak, talk out, break that disclosure agreement if you have to. And,
Sure.
the problem is that you may not care about yourself. You may not fear for yourself, but then what about your family?
Exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
want anything to happen to your family.
Sure.
So that's the issue to deal with. But that was the mind-blowing experience I had
Yeah.
there. And it was just
Yeah,
totally
that's
out of the
really
blue,
strange.
totally unexpected. And I was like, oh my God, how phenomenal, how incredible.
Right.
Some people claim they've received gifts from the extraterrestrials that increase their psychic powers. Like Ted Owens comes to mind, and Yuri Geller, and I believe you met Yuri. Was that right?
I've met Yuri. What was so funny, when I was a kid growing up in West Texas, we were poor. We didn't have anything. And we would study and read all these books. And when Uri's My Story came out, I read that and I was like, wow, here's this guy with the same gifts that I have, but he's getting rich and famous. He's doing all this
Yeah.
stuff, and I wish I could do that. And I never dreamed in a bajillion years that I would meet the guy when I was this kid growing up in West Texas. Well, many years later, I had moved to New York with my current wife now, and she was a New York native, and I lived up there with her for about 6.5 years in New York. And I don't even remember, honestly, how it happened, but for some reason, Uri and I began emailing. And we emailed about some very specific things. It wasn't just starstruck, oh gosh, it's great to meet you, and all this. We talked about very specific psychic matters and some other things. And we had a pretty good little email going there for a while. And then he was lecturing in Manhattan, and I found out, and I said, I told my wife, oh my God, we have to go. We've got to
Yeah.
go see him in person. And so we did. And she believes in the paranormal. She's encountered all these experiences with me since we've been together and seen these things happen. But she always asked, she said, well, what do you think about her? Do you think he's really real? And I said, yeah, I'm convinced he is. I'm 100% certain he is. But I said, I will absolutely know for sure if when we get there, if I can just touch him, if I can just pat him on the back, if I can just reach out, just, hey, how you doing? I'll know for sure. I'll connect with him, and I'll know absolutely for sure.
Sure.
So we got to the demonstration, and before it started, I had to go to the restroom. So I got up to go to the restroom, and as I was going in, who was coming out? Uri.
Yuri.
So hey, how you doing? He smiled at me. I smiled at him. I reached over and just patted him on the shoulder. Hey, how you doing? And got all the information I needed at that moment that, yeah, he was absolutely the real deal.
He's the
So
real
we went
deal. Yep.
on and watched the demonstration. He did the lecture and everything, and he bent a spoon. And it's so far removed from
Wow.
what the skeptics accuse him of doing. He held the spoon so lightly toward the end of the handle of the spoon, and just barely stroked it up by the bowl. As light as he was holding it, when he stroked at the bowl, the spoon didn't even bend down. That's how lightly he was touching it. And it started to bend, and he pulled his finger up away from it and continued to go like this in the air, and the spoon continued to bend. And what made it really great was that a bunch of people in the audience got up and went, look, Uri, look. And they had bought spoons that they had bent, right?
Oh, wow.
So we get through the end of the evening, and he's signing books, and I had a book that I wanted him to sign. So we're standing in line. And we get up there, and he smiles at me, and he looks up, and he stops, and he looks at me for a minute. He says, wait a minute, we know each other. And I just said, yeah. And he said, we've emailed.
Oh, they
And we've
remember.
not just emailed, but we've also sent stuff snail mail to each other. And I said, yeah. And he said, not just ordinary stuff. We've talked about very, very specific things. We've gone back and forth on very specific issues. I said, yep, that's correct. And so, he knew who I was, and there was no way he could have known who I was. He'd never seen a picture of me even. And the tickets were all anonymous. There was no names on the tickets or anything like that. You didn't sign in, anything or anything like that. So he signed my book, and I, of course, still have it to this day. And then, so all these years later, when I wrote my 2 books, everybody tells you, get a celebrity endorsement. I'm like, who the heck do I know that I could ask for a celebrity endorsement? It was like, Yuri. So I wrote to him and asked him, and bless his heart, he was kind enough to give me an endorsement for both my books. And
Wow, that's really nice of him.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so coming from, poor old boy in West Texas, not only meeting Yuri, but getting endorsement for the books that I wrote then, it was like, wow, that's a full circle moment. That was really amazing.
Absolutely.
I think he's a fascinating individual, and
he is. He's really amazing. He's really fascinating.
A lot of criticism.
And I've tried to pick his brain on the UFOs and the aliens, but he won't talk to me.
He did a lot of other things too. He's mostly known for the spoon bending, but I guess he was a dowser, and his telepathy skills were really intense.
Really extraordinary, yeah.
And he's done a lot of charity work too.
Yes.
Actually, one of our guests was telling us that recently.
Yes.
Yeah. Fascinating guy.
He is. He is.
It's crickets.
Oh, yeah, we had a moment of silence, so we got to do our cricket.
There we go.
That's our fault.
That's our moment of silence.
Your moment of silence. I think there was another thing we wanted to get into, and I think that was the doppelganger phenomena.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of been told at some point in their life, like, hey, you look just like this other person.
Right.
Under the tea, I thought you were someone else, and they must be your doppelganger.
Right. Yeah, I've had an experience with several doppelgangers, several that, but what made this different was usually people report that they're out somewhere, they see someone that, oh, you're a dead ringer for my best friend or whatever. And my experiences occurred when I knew where the other person was at. Like one time I saw the doppelganger of my mother walking across our front porch, and she said, good morning. And I jumped out of my skin, looked over, she was sitting at the dining room table. And so I was like, okay, but I saw her doppelganger out there. I've seen several, but the most amazing to me, I was dating this gal that was a very flashy gal, had a very unique appearance, and had a unique car and unique decorations in the car, so that she could find her. The main purpose of that was so she could find her car in a parking lot real easy. She'd see the items in the car. Oh, there I am. So one morning I was out. I was driving one way, and I see her car coming and her coming in the other direction. And we're in the lane side by side, going opposite directions. And I look at her and I said, this is absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt her. And as she gets closer, I see her, and it's her. And there's no question it's her. There's no question it's her car. There's no question it's her unique decorations in the car. And so I start honking at her and waving at her. And she's just staring straight ahead with the oddest expression on her face that I have ever seen on any human being as long as I've lived. And I continued to honk and wave, and she never looked over. She just drove on, staring straight ahead with an odd expression.
Who is this? Yeah.
And I thought, okay, whatever. And I said, well, I'll call her and leave a message on her answering machine and bug her and say, hey, why didn't you pay attention to me? So I immediately grabbed the phone, and as I'm watching her car recede in the rearview mirror, I dial her home number, and she picks up.
Oh, boy.
And I nearly wrecked the car. And I said, what in the world are you doing home? She said, well, stupid, I live here. Where else would I be? And then I explained to her that I had just seen her in her car driving down the road with this odd expression on her face. And she'd be like, okay, well, it's obviously paranormal. And she believed it was paranormal at the time. So we said, well, we'll discuss it later. But that was the oddest experience with a doppelganger I've had.
I can imagine.
And like I say, it was definitely her car. But when I called, she was at the house.
So it wasn't just her. It was actually the car. It was things in the
everything.
car. Everything.
The whole 9 yards worth. Yeah, the whole 9 yards worth. Wow. Incredible. Just really
fascinating.
really strange.
Very strange.
Very strange. Some things affect me more than others. Some things are like, yeah, okay. And then some things is like, okay. And then we don't always get to make sense out of things, unfortunately. Sometimes things happen and we don't get to assign meaning or find meaning in them. And
We understand that
I tell
completely.
people that when they have paranormal experiences, sometimes it may just be the guys on the other side going, hey, hi, how you doing? We're here. Just want you to know we're around, you know?
That's right.
Hello.
And some of the most paranormal things that have happened to us are things we couldn't necessarily measure or didn't show up in the measurements we had
Right.
available to us at that time
That's what I was
Exactly.
just
doing an
saying. Talk about
investigation.
the
And
hello.
yet the
Exactly.
experience was there, So,
Yeah.
you can get hung up on the equipment. And
Yeah.
I love equipment. Don't get me wrong. I'm an ITC fan, and we both are. And we do a lot of spirit box stuff, and I love the paranormal toys and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. In fact, I'm working on one, designing one. But the experience, sometimes gets lost in it, and you really just want to be open to everything that's happening, or you
Exactly
miss
right.
it. You
Exactly
can
right.
miss it trying to get
Yeah.
too, I don't know,
I,
scientific. I
I
think there's kind of a battle between the two
it
things.
is. I had this revelation the other day talking about just some spirits just saying, "Hey, we're here." I had this revelation the other day, and my TV producer, he said, "I'm surprised you have never thought of this before." Then I said, "I hadn't. It just came to me. The guys just gave it to me. What if a lot of hauntings are just nostalgia?" And the way that came to me was I was sitting there having this big bout of nostalgia and thinking about my old hometown and my friends and experiences I'd had and things. And it just popped in my head. What if somebody on the other side says, you know what? I think I'll go back and see what the old farm looks like. And they go back to the old farm and the spirit and the conditions are just right. And somebody sees them there as a ghost. And maybe there's no meaning, there's no message, there's no purpose. It's just the person came back in spirit to see what they had done to the old farm that they used to live in. What if some of the hauntings are just nostalgia being acted out? I thought, wow, what a revelation. Not
Sure.
everything has to have these huge deep meanings. It's like,
Right.
John, why did
Right.
you go back? I just want to see
Right.
the old sites. I just wanted to resurrect those memories again. It's like maybe some of the hauntings that we experience are just that. It's just nostalgia.
What was it like for you filming a TV pilot for the History Channel?
Oh my God, that was incredible. That was just really phenomenal. And
Can't imagine.
unfortunately, it didn't air.
Oh,
Um, but the experience was just mind blowing to stand in the places where incredible history had occurred and experience those energies for myself was just mind blowing. And for what made it really great for me is I'm a horrible, horrible student of history. Literally in junior high and high school, I was the guy that was writing dates on his palm and ink to try and pass the test. So I knew nothing about it. What I knew about the Lincoln assassination was Booth killed Lincoln. Period. That's all I
that's
knew.
it.
Yeah, that was it.
Mhm.
And so I was the ideal candidate for this because any information I got had to come from my psychic gift. I couldn't have known it otherwise. So we went to all these marvelous places. We went to Ford's Theater. We went to the Peterson House across the street where Lincoln was taken after he was shot and where he died the following morning. We went to the Mud House where Booth had gone for treatment of his leg and all that. And then we went to the barn that used to be a tobacco farm where Booth was hiding out with the other guy and met his demise. And just absolutely phenomenal, just incredible to feel and relive those experiences and those energies. And one of the neatest things for me was that there were things that were accepted history and stated as accepted history that I came in and said, no, that's not right. It happened this way.
Yeah.
And then through research, through the connections that the production companies had and the History Channel had and all the people involved, through subsequent research, we were able to validate that, yeah, sure enough, I was right. And the way it was recorded was wrong. And one example of that I write about in the book, the first time I've ever written about the shooting the pilots in the new book, A Knock in the Attic, and the first time I've ever written about that. And one of the great things in there was there's a museum below the Ford Theater, and they have a door there, and it's like John Wilkes Booth drilled a hole in this door so he could look in on Lincoln, see was the opportune time to burst through the door and shoot him was, right?
Wow.
And I looked at that and I said, no, that's not right. Booth didn't drill that hole. I said he had the hole drilled by somebody that worked in the theater that wouldn't arouse suspicion, but Booth did not drill this hole. He had it done. And sure enough, they did a ton of research afterwards and found out that I was right. There was a
Wow.
carpenter in the theater that had drilled the hole, and not even directly connected to Booth. And supposedly so that Lincoln's bodyguard could look through the hole and keep an eye on him. Well, since Booth burst in and shot him, that brings up the question, where was the bodyguard? The bodyguard's supposed to be keeping people
Right.
out of the
Exactly. Yeah.
presidential box. Where was he?
Mhm.
So maybe he
Yeah,
was in
right.
on it. But I picked up that there was a lot of people that were involved in the plot, that it went deeper than anybody imagined. And one of the Lincoln historians told us, he said, Booth's finger pulled the trigger, but there were a lot of hands on the gun. So there was a lot of interesting things that we were able to find out. And we got a lot of paranormal manifestations. We got, I think we may have been, and other people do it now all the time, but I think we may have been the very first to film with a FLIR camera, forward looking infrared radiation. I think we were
Wow.
the very first to do that. And FLIR shows up, heat is white and cold is black. And so we were in the Mud house, and I said, Mrs. Mudd's here, her spirit's here, and she's walking toward me. And I said, she's walking through me. I feel her passing through me, and she's coming out the other side. And as I said that, on the FLIR camera in black, which indicates cold, there were these period era looking shoe prints, sole prints, woman size, walking across the floor and walking through me and out the other side. And we got that on the FLIR.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So
really
we
cool.
had
Yeah.
a lot of neat paranormal things happen, a lot that we captured. And one of the really neat things that I discovered was that for me, a place can be renovated, repainted, restructured, replica items bought in. It doesn't matter. I can still pick up on what was there and read it just like it
The
was,
past.
still the same or whatever. We went to, this was something I didn't even know. Um, the barn was at the top of the hill from the restaurant.
In
Okay.
Port Royal, Virginia.
Yeah, it's a comment from Anne Marie Young. She mentioned that the barn at the top of the hill from a restaurant I worked at.
Yeah, in Port Royal, Virginia.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of cool.
So
She's awesome.
yeah, so it was one of the camera crew just told me just here a while back, because I was getting everybody's permissions to use them in the new book, their name in the new book.
Mhm.
And he told me, he said that when we were filming at the Peterson house, he asked one of the docents there, one of the guards there, he said, look, we got one shot to get this. He said, what do I need to focus on? What did I need to film that's really important in here? And the guard said, it doesn't matter. It's mostly recreations and replicas anyways. And I didn't even know that until I
Right.
just talked to him here recently, and he told me that. But to me, it made absolutely no difference, because the energy is still there in its
Still
pure form.
remains.
Do you think it exists on like an astral level? And
Mm.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it resides there, remains there, and you can tap into that and connect with it. And for me, it was just like the day it happened. And you could tear everything out of there, repaint it, and do something else to it. It's still going to feel the same way. That energy doesn't go away. That
Sure.
energy doesn't leave.
sure, that's true of a lot of like museum type houses. And
Mhm.
classic
Historical.
historical homes. Yeah, you go
Right.
in there and there'll be a lot of antique furniture, but it's not actually the furniture that the where
That was
the
really
event
there.
happened
Right.
was really
Right.
there, might have been
Right.
donated, things like that. And they make it, everything look to the period.
Right.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes those new pieces or replacement pieces may actually absorb some of the energy that was there from the original piece, and
sure.
kind of take
Yeah.
that on, and kind of become part of that.
Right. It's sort of
Right.
like bringing an axe into Lizzie Borden's
Yeah.
bed and breakfast
There
table.
you
Yeah.
go.
There you go.
And then that axe
You might want to
absorbs
be
that
careful with that
energy.
axe when you leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly right.
Put it in a safe
Exactly right.
spot. Yeah. I think there was a mention too of investigating up in our way in the Northeast. We live in New England and Massachusetts, Rhode Island area. Did you investigate some haunted stables up this way?
In a state other than New York, and
Oh,
the
it's New
owners
York.
of the stable asked me to to not disclose the location. But yeah, there was a haunted horse barn, and they asked me to come, and their main concern was, are we in danger? Are the horses in danger? That was their main issue. And so I went to investigate this thing, and I could reassure them. I said, no, you're not in danger, and the horses are not in danger. These spirits are not going to harm anybody. But they were incredibly active there. And one of
What
the
was
funny
going on?
things was they had an experience where the entire length of the barn, this wind would start rip through the barn, stirring up dust, stirring up hay, blowing things, and out the other end of the barn. And it would happen when there was not a speck of wind outside, when there was no wind at all. So the very first thing that happened when we got there and started walking through the barn, and this was still daylight, here came that wind, and it roared from one end of the barn to the other and almost blew my cap off my head. It was so strong. And there was not a speck of wind outside. There was not a leaf stirring on a tree as far as the eye could see. And then it happened one more time later that night. Stayed there later in the evening to do the continue the investigation. And we had the barn closed up. They closed both big doors at the end of the barn, so it was entirely closed up. And with it closed up, the wind roared through from one end to the other again, stirring stuff up. So all these types of things, they were just in a panic there. They were like, is this thing going to hurt us? Is it going to get us? Is it going to get the horses? I said, no. I said, I was able to discern some of the spirits that were there and some of the things that were going on, and tell them how to interact with that and what to do. And I said, oddly enough, I said, a lot of times these spirits just linger in a place. They visit for whatever reason. They hang around. And I said, if you'll take, as crazy as it sounds, get you a little dish of candies, and get you a little bowl, pour some gin in it, something like that, and set it out for them. Say, hey guys, this is for you. I said, you'll find out that it appeases them. A lot of this stuff slows down. And I don't know what it is about gin, but a lot of spirits seem to have an affinity for gin. And I tell people that, and I use it in a lot of my offerings and things that I do. And I have seen all kinds of incredible physical results with it. And what first cottoned me to that was that
Certainly,
I was watching a documentary on TV, and there was a volcano that had erupted, and here all the lava is flowing towards these people's houses. And this guy had a house that was kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it was in the path of the lava. The lava is like this wide river, right? And so he said, I will honor Pele. I will take and put these bottles of booze at each corner of my property and honor the goddess Pele, and she will spare my home. Now, this is a scientific documentary, right? And here comes this river of lava, and it hits the front of his property where those bottles of booze are, splits in half, goes down the side of his house, and joins back up in the back and leaves his house and his property untouched. Now, there are scientists in this documentary, and they're going, we have no clue.
Right.
Okay.
I've actually seen that. I think I've seen that.
Have you?
Yeah. And he said, I told you, I
think I have.
sacrificed to Pele.
That's
She
amazing.
honored my house.
Yes.
And then eventually, as time went by, they wouldn't let him back on the property. They wouldn't let him try and get back there over the lava to add more booze. They made him leave. And he said, if I had just been able to stay there and offer more booze, my property would have been completely saved. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
hey,
so
if it didn't work, you have something to drink, right? So.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm just kidding, but seriously, alcohol is often an offering, right?
We do
Yeah.
it.
To the dead.
Yes.
We've done it ourselves,
Yeah.
using rum or whiskey, depending on what traditions you follow, and gin.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if it's like the idea that they wanted to experience, they enjoyed it in life, and want to experience it in the afterlife.
Well, I think some of these entities, some of these other spirits, not only the people that may have enjoyed it in life, but these other entities and spirits, they are able to use that energy, absorb that energy from that alcohol, and somehow use it. Alcohol is a mystical thing. It's a marvelous thing. You look at the whiskey. Whiskey was called the water of life. And in Scotland and in Ireland, the reason it was called the water of life, if you were doing poorly and you were on your sick bed and you just weren't getting well, they'd give you whiskey, and it stimulated your appetite. That's why you get hungry when you drink whiskey. I know, I'm a big bourbon drinker, and it stimulates your appetite. You would eat, you would recover. The alcohol was good for your system. Even the Bible said, he wrote Timothy, said, don't just drink water only, take a little wine for your stomach's sake and your frequent infirmities,
Sure.
And we have Nicosi, the goddess of beer. We have, the Sumerians brewed beer,
Mm-hmm.
strong drink, liquor, alcohol goes way back in history. And what most people don't understand, and I didn't know it, I'm a heavy drinker myself. I love the stuff, but I didn't know this. The United States was founded on booze. The preachers brewed it and used it, and the people that built the railroads, did other things. They paid them in booze. You had daily rations of booze. Preachers
Oh,
brewed
Wow.
wow.
and made booze on it.
It's like
There was
currency.
a whole
Yeah.
documentary on the History Channel about this, and I was like, "Holy cow! The U.S. was founded on booze, man."
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
So we underestimate it, we denigrate it, and of course we abuse it like we abuse everything else. But I think there is a mystical quality to alcohol. I really do, and I
It may
think
well
that's one of
be.
the things
It
that helps make that connection.
Sure.
certainly is old, and much older than the United States, as far as we go as living here,
Absolutely,
and it's on the Native Americans as well, like tobacco. So you've got,
yeah,
Exactly.
drinking and smoking.
yep,
And peyote.
Sounds like
yeah,
a party, Right,
yeah.
right.
There you
Eat some
go.
peyote.
There you
Right.
Ooh,
go. Absolutely.
that peace
Ayahuasca
pipe.
And
seems to be
I used to
something.
do. I used to do psychic fairs a long time
I haven't
ago. Go ahead.
go. No, I'm good. Thank you.
I,
You did a psychic.
Very
I used to do
scientific.
psychic fairs a long time ago, and there's this one place I went to. It was in a hotel, and so I'd get a room, do the fair, come down, eat in the restaurant. Then they had a little bar, and then I could just go straight up to my room. So I always told people, I said, when you drink alcohol, it removes the inhibitions entirely. It brings down all the blocks. So whereas when I'm giving a reading during the day to clients, I might say something in a more tactful way. If it's at night and I've had a few, I'm just going to be all balls out and okay, here's the way it is. So we went to me and this one other psychic that I knew there. We went to the bar, and the bartender came over and was making small talk with us. And he said, "What do y'all do?" And he said, "Oh, we're psychics. We're with the psychic fair." And he goes, "Oh, really?" He said, "That's cool, but I don't know if I believe in that." I said, "Well, let's make him a believer." And the other guy said, "Okay." So we'd had a few by then. We just started reading for this guy, just all out. And I mean, not holding anything back, not censoring anything, not being
Oh.
tactful about anything.
No.
And so we said, "Now don't say anything till we get through. Then you tell us how we did." So he said, "Okay." And I mean, we just blew doors off. So we got through, and he just stood there staring at us for a minute, kind of shell shocked. And he said, "Well," he said, "this really changes my mind." He said, "And I would have to say you're about 98% accurate. And the only reason I don't give you 100% is I got to make a phone call and check on this one thing you said."
Oh my
And he
God.
did. And he made the phone call, and he came back and he said, "Okay, you've been 100% accurate."
Awesome.
But
That's
I mean, we
great.
were just,
That
Yeah,
is
it's great.
that is
Before we
yeah,
put
awesome.
the comment up, I'd like to ask you, do you feel that alcohol um, inhibits your gift,
Or
no, it
enhances it.
releases it.
enhance it?
It enhances it. Yeah.
It
It's like I
does.
say, it takes all the tactful walls down. It takes all
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
this is kind of a mixed debate. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
do say it helps, but we also wonder if you get too far
Yeah.
and start to work against you.
No, it never has. Yeah, it never has. So, but I have a unique family constitution too. Have I ever come across a spirit that isn't very nice?
Yeah, it's
Anne
coming
Marie
from our
Young.
Anne Marie Young.
Um,
We mentioned some nice spirits. Have you come across some negative entities?
Obviously, if you extrapolate again from the world, you look at the world, there's bad people, there's evil people. So that has to exist in the spiritual realm. And when evil people die, that was become good or whatever. So obviously that has to be there. I don't encounter that often. I've never encountered the Hollywood version of The Exorcist. I've never found the typical demon or possession or whatever. I have never encountered that in all of the years that I've done this.
Mm.
That's not to say obviously that evil doesn't exist, but I haven't encountered spirits that I would personally say had malevolent intent. Uh, frequently, if ever, and I'll give you an example. I think there's a lot of misinterpretation out there. One thing, and a lot of this has to do with the way we're raised, especially if you were raised Christian.
Mhm.
Anything supernatural, got to be of the devil automatically. There it is.
Demonic.
Write it off. It's
Exactly.
satanic. So I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of misinterpretation there.
Mhm.
Right.
The other thing is, I had a lady one time when I was shooting the pilot. This lady, one of the ladies that worked there, said, "Oh, when you get a break in filming, I've got to talk to you. I've got to talk to you." I said, "Okay." So we got off, and she said, "This ghost tried to kill me." I said, "No, ghost tried to kill you." She said, "Yes, this ghost tried to kill me." I said, "What happened?" She said, "I was in my kitchen, and from the cupboard across the room, it threw a plate into the wall next to me. The plate shattered. The ghost tried to kill me." I said, "The ghost didn't try to kill you." I said, "If the ghost tried to kill you, you'd be dead." I said, "What happened was you've been ignoring the spiritual realm for a long time. I can tell this psychically, and they're trying to get through to you, and they're trying to get through to you. And it's just like a kid in the store shopping with his mom, and the mom's looking at the dresses, and the kid's mom, mom, mama, mom, mom, and mama
Mommy.
won't listen. So he finally knocks over a chair, and she turns around. "What are you doing?" Now he's got her attention.
Attention.
I said,
Yeah.
"It's the same thing with the spirit. They've been trying to get your attention for a long time. You haven't been paying attention. Now, by God, you're going to pay attention." And I said,
Right.
"That's all it was. It's nothing harmful. It's nothing scary, nothing frightening, nothing evil, nothing malevolent. It's just, we need to get your attention. Hey,
Yeah.
and I said, now they got your attention." Then I explained to her how to go from there to contact or to deal with or to get further information, further knowledge from the spirits. But I did have one experience one time when we were living in New York. We were in Manhattan. My wife had a shop there that we shopped in Manhattan for. She had a shop in the Bronx. And we were in Manhattan with a friend of ours who was also a psychic. And we were standing there. Now, he was blind. And we were all standing there at a corner waiting for the light to change. And this was shortly after 9/11 had happened. And something in spirit blew past us strong enough and close enough that it rumpled our clothes, made our clothes, uh, waver in the wind,
Wow.
ruffle in the wind. And he said, "Did you feel that?" And I said, "Yes." "Did you?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "What was it?" And I said, "Something malevolent going somewhere to do no good." And he said, "That's exactly what I picked up." So,
Oh
yeah,
my God.
they are out there, but you don't encounter them that often. I haven't encountered them that often. And I believe that if we take normal, sensible spiritual steps, there's a lot of techniques people can learn to protect themselves when they interact with the spiritual realm, and to protect themselves normally. I believe if you do that, you're okay. I don't believe that there's a demon behind every bush going to get you.
No.
And
No, it's
going back
often
to the,
popularized in
yeah,
Hollywood and
yeah,
certainly
Pe-
TV
exactly.
media.
People
But I will tell you a
confuse.
funny incident, and
Yeah.
this goes back to the misinterpretation thing. I had a client
Sure.
call me one time, and she said, "You got to help me get rid of this ghost." And I said, "Okay, let's talk about this, find out what's going on." Well, she had watched Sylvia Brown on TV when Sylvia was still alive, was on the Montel show.
Hmm.
So Sylvia had said, "Oh, you can ask for your very own ghost and ask for a ghost to come to you." And so the lady said, "That sounds like fun. I think I will." So she said, "I asked for a ghost to show up at my house." And it did. And it scared the life out of me. And now I can't get rid of it. And I moved trying to get rid of it, and it followed me. And she said, "Where I live now," she said, "it will go up and down the street and set all the car alarms off at once." And
Wow.
since I moved in, the people think since I'm the new kid on the block and never happened before, I must be doing it. So they call the police on her. So the police came out, and they were standing there on her doorstep talking to her. And she said, "Thank God, while they were there with me, the ghost went out and set all the car alarms off at once up and down the street." So they looked at me, looked at each other, and said, "Okay, it's obviously not her, and what's causing it, we have no idea, but we're gone, case closed, out of here." So I said, "Okay, here's your problem. You asked for it, it came. Now you're rejecting it." "I want a girlfriend. Here comes the girlfriend. Go away. I don't
Nope.
want no
Same.
girlfriend."
You don't love me
So
anymore.
I said, "You rejected it. Now that upset it, hurt his feelings. It's like, I came. Why don't you? I'm here. You asked for me,
All right.
and then you moved trying to get rid of me. So now I'm going to show you I'm still here. I'm going to set off all these car alarms." I said, "Here's what you do. You go and you talk to the spirit and say, 'Look, I did ask you to come, and I'm sorry I rejected you, and I'm sorry I tried to run away and leave you behind and move. You're welcome here. Just don't scare the life out of me and quit pestering the neighbors, and we'll make peace with each other. And I said, do this. Ask this spirit to protect you and to protect your home and to watch over it. And when you leave, say, I've got to leave now. And if you're not coming with me, if you're going to stay in the house, watch over the house. Don't let anybody break in. Don't let anything bad happen or anything like that. I said, if you'll do that, you'll make peace with the spirit. You'll find you've got a good companion there and some protection. And call me back, let me know how it goes. So she did, and it worked out. So a lot of it's misinterpretation, a lot of it's fear, a lot of it's religious upbringing, and
a lot of
that's what
times
we have to get past.
with that, people they associate, like you said, with demonic, being a demon, but it's not. It's a lot. Most of the time, it's more negative energy.
Yeah,
Some chaotic energy. So they misinterpret that.
exactly.
Right.
And,
Right. That's always a question we like to ask people, what is your interpretation of what a demon is? We have a whole series that we call the D word series.
Yeah.
And a podcast we do called the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast, which is us too. And it's separate than Bigfoot and the Bunny.
right.
Everywhere podcasts are available.
There you go.
So it was a little plug. But we like to ask people that because you hear all sorts of different answers and what the dreaded D word might be.
Right.
Exactly. And what I get tickled about, demonologists, I say, look, if demons are these incredibly powerful, deceitful beings, how do you know they're going to tell you the truth? Number one, you talk to them, you say, oh, I command you to, who are you, and do that. If it's a demon and a liar, it's not going to tell you the truth, number one. Number two, you as a lowly human being aren't going to have power over this thing. You may convince yourself you are, but you're not going to have power over this thing. And that's evidence. I can't tell you how many people that have called in priests, exorcists, psychics, whatever, to get rid of a spirit or to cleanse an area or to close a portal. And 99.9% of the time that I know of, it makes it worse.
I have seen exactly that happen.
Yeah, it doesn't close it down, doesn't get rid of it, makes it worse. So I tell people, look, number one, find out why these things are there. Who are they? What are they? Why are they there? What's their message? And if they're going to hang around, they're going to hang around. Ain't much you're going to do about it. Make peace with it and learn to make peace with them and establish some kind of dialogue, So.
Troy Astro says the Hollywood Exorcist is fictional. Nobody wants to see the real Exorcist. So there might be some truth to that. Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree with you. I know I went to an investigation where they had brought in some kind of exorcist prior, and after they left, everything got much, much worse. Like it just pissed it off and
even more.
Yeah.
Well, on the other side, when we cross over, we still have our will, our volition, our aims and goals and everything, just like we do here. Then we have these incredible entities, these incredible beings that have this incredible strength, this incredible power to affect things on the physical realm, to do things, to make manifestations. And they've got their own agendas, and some of those are not going to be human agendas. It's going to be, hey, I'm doing my thing. And we have to allow for that, and we have to respect that. I get put out with ghost hunters that curse at ghosts to try and get a reaction, and then they scream and run like little girls when they do.
Silly.
It's horrible. It's like,
I don't like the taunting of
it's like, have respect for the other
exactly.
side. Have respect for these energies, because these energies can be very powerful and can manifest in very powerful and dramatic ways. Have respect for that.
We agree.
And then you'll get respect in return. That's always been my theory, and it's always worked out. So.
Yes, respect your dead, and respect especially your ancestors and the places you visit. If you do the cemetery thing and that kind of thing, pick up your trash.
We do
we
pick up
people's trash.
In a lot of places I will go, I'll ask permission. I'll say, hey, can I come in here? This is who I am. This is what I want to do. Do you mind if this particular day and time, can I come in here and establish some rapport with you? And just being respectful. It's like going to somebody's home.
Exactly.
I'm glad we got into the ghost removal services part of things, because that is something that comes up a lot.
Right.
And it even pulses us, if somebody comes to you and says, well, I have this haunting. How do I change it? How do I fix it? And those first steps are just simply asking, being, with a kindness, genuine heart, give them something positive to do or
Exactly.
to leave.
Exactly.
And when you say ask, just to clarify for our audience, are you saying to the person to, in their living room or wherever the haunting has occurred, to just literally say out loud by themselves to the room, to the spirit,
Right.
those things? Or
Exactly. Yeah.
do
Just
you,
talk to the spirit. Just talk out loud to the spirit and just
mhm.
express your emotions and your desires and say, look, I don't mind you being here, but try not to scare the life out of me. And, don't cause mischief in the neighborhood or whatever. And let's have this dialogue and what do you need from me and what can I get from you? Can you protect the house? I went out in one of the forests here where, all the Indians have lived all over the U.S. and we have a lot of Indian presence here in Florida. And in one of the forests where one of the main Indian settlements was at one time, this spirit appeared to me as a young Indian boy, say 15, 16, 17, 18, something like that. Now, who knows? He may have been thousands of years old. Who knows? But that was how he chose
Right.
to appear to me. And he said, can I come home with you? And I said, I didn't discern anything negative or evil or anything about him. And I said, sure, come on. So I brought him home. Well, one of his favorite things to do was our laundry room door coming into the hallway, coming into the house. He would grab that doorknob and rattle that door like it was the end of the world was coming. And it was so forceful and so loud that my wife, who believes, nonetheless, she'd jump sometimes. And one time she even said, I know it's the ghost, but would you just go look, make sure nobody's breaking in the house? And it was always him. And that was one of the kind of the games that we played. And when we would leave, I would ask him, I'd say, hey, watch over the house, keep everything safe till we get back. And when I would come in from outside, coming through the garage and come into the house, I would unlock the door, grab the knob. One time I pulled the door open about 6 inches. He grabbed the knob and slammed the door shut.
Oh my goodness.
And I laughed. I said, okay, yes, we're home. Thank you. And I grabbed the door and came on in. So he would do things like that. And we always got this warm sense of his presence, that he was watching over us, watching over the house. And he
Sweet.
continued to rattle the laundry room door the entire time he was here. And he stayed with us about a year or two. And then finally just moved on. Says, okay, it's my time to do something else now.
Wow.
And on he went. But yeah, that was a marvelous experience, great experience.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. We wanted to just review, and that's what we're writing our little secret squirrel notes to
Yeah.
each other. Just that you have a couple of books out,
Mhm.
and just to remind people what they are. The first being Riding with Ghosts, Angels, and Spirits of the Dead. The second being A Knock in the Attic, True Ghost
Right,
Stories and Other Spine-Chilling Paranormal Adventures.
right.
But you're
And you're working
working
on a third book.
third book.
I'm
Maybe,
working
How's
on a
that
third
going?
book, 20
yeah,
ways to increase your psychic abilities.
Oh, that's
nice.
And
nice.
it's
All
going
right, I
to
like it.
be a literal, my wife calls it a psychic toolbox. You can reach in and take out what you want to use. But what it
Nice.
is every chapter will deal with a specific paranormal technique. For example, the first chapter is psychometry. It tells you what psychometry is, what it does, how to learn it, how to practice it, and then the real world application for it. So it's not just learning a parlor trick. And I go through, all told, there'll be 20 chapters, 20 different techniques, and it'll be everything from tarot, how to use the tarot, to scrying, to psychometry, to how to hold a seance, an old fashioned seance, and all this. And everything will be, here's what the definition of it actually is, here's what it really is, here's how you learn it, here's how you practice it and get good at it, and then here's the real world application for it. Because all these techniques do have a real world application. Just like when I got the message from the other side, hey, write this email to this guy and tell him
Right.
not to do any weird health things, that's a real world application. And so, like with psychometry, you don't just want to grab a friend's ring at a party and go, oh, you were with so and so when you bought this, and you were out of state, and you got it at this little shop, and everybody goes, ooh, 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 ooh. Well, big deal. What you want to do is take that skill and make a real world application of it. So a real world application, just one example would be, I just don't know if this friend of mine is true to me or not. So you go over to his or her house and you see an object that you know is familiar to them and that they cherish or use a lot or whatever. You go, oh, can I look at that? And you handle it and you get the vibration from it. You go, oh, this sucker's stabbing me in the back. So that's a real world application of psychometry instead of just being a parlor trick or a party trick. So that's the third book, and hopefully, I'm so busy now, and but hopefully it'll be finished by the end of this year or the early part of next year, and get it out. But the other two books are available now. You can get them at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. Walmart carries them online.
Wow,
On my
that's
website,
awesome.
there's for each book, there's links to little mom and pop stores. Some people hate Amazon, so okay, there's mom and
Mhm.
pop stores you can buy from. So those are all available now.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
I kind of agree with that mentality, although I'm not going
Yeah.
to lie, I order a lot of stuff on Amazon, but I always support our local businesses when
Right,
possible. So
right.
I love that. What is your website? And where can people find you, John? The best
For if
place.
they want more information about me or to get a psychic reading, schedule a psychic reading with me, that's johnrussell.net. And then they can look at my books. One website for Writing with Ghosts is writingwithghost.net, and that's for writing with ghost angels and the spirits of the dead. My other book has its own website, which is a knockintheattic.net, and that's the latest book that just came out in February this year. And it tells what the book's about. It's got a sample first chapter for each book on each website, so you can read the first chapter if you want to for
Oh,
free,
that's great.
and look at that and say, okay,
Very
yeah, I
cool.
want this. And then it's got the links to buy it, and it's got reader reviews, editorial reviews, all that good stuff. And then as a nice little bonus, there's a real clear, like a Class A EVP voice that I put on each one of those websites. You can scroll down, just look for Forest EVP and play that, and you'll hear a spirit voice there real clear. So that's
Oh,
pretty
that's
cool.
super
So
cool.
that's
That
where,
is
I
really
love
cool.
that.
yeah,
I love this vision of you on the motorcycle, just going from haunted place to haunted place.
Yes.
that's
You know,
exactly what
maybe
I
one of
did.
those guitars behind
It's
you,
really marvelous.
strapped on your
And I,
back, and
When I first
it's
read this,
cool. It's
it
really cool.
reminded me of Neil Peart from
From Rush, yeah, we're
the
big
drummer
Rush
from
fans.
Rush. We're
there
big
you
He
Rush
go.
fans.
did a lot
There
of
And
you
I
go.
don't know if you
road
know his
time on his bike.
backstory, but he
I
would
do
take
a
his
little bit. Yeah.
he would take his bike everywhere and just ride everywhere and
Yeah.
meet the
And
group.
journal it. Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
is
what I
just
have to tell
awesome.
people about these books, they are unique in the realm of the paranormal. And when you write a book, every agent, every publisher, and every editor will tell you there is no unique book. Give me comp titles, standing for comparable. What's your book comparable to? Give me at least 3 comp titles. There's no unique book. And I told everybody, I said, this book's unique. So sure enough, one of my publisher friends read the manuscript and he said, this book is totally unique. There's nothing else like this out there. So the books
Wow.
are unique. And since they've been published, the readers have told me I've been reading books on psychics, the paranormal, medium, supernatural my entire life. I've never read anything like these stories ever. So the
Wow.
books are unique. You're going to have fun with them. You're going to learn. It's not just, oh, here's a spooky thing that happened to me, but it's like this happened and here's what I learned from it. And maybe
Right.
you can apply this in your own life, or maybe it'll inspire you to think a little deeper or look a little more in this certain direction or whatever.
Sure.
And it's also I tell everybody in the books, it's like, look, the older I get, the more questions I have. I wish I had all the answers, and I wish I had all the right things to do to tell you how to make life work perfect, but I don't, and I don't know anybody that does. But we get a little bit of light on the path, and we walk in that light, and maybe we get some more. And it's a lot of faith in this thing. So
It sounds wonderful.
Awesome. These
Love
books
that.
sound great, and I really am interested in this third one, so I'm going to
Yeah,
keep an eye out for
I
that as
wrote it
well.
all down.
yeah,
Yeah, we're taking notes. So,
Yeah.
oh, bless your
um,
heart. Well,
thank
thank you.
You're
thank you so
welcome.
much for
Thank
coming
you.
on to our show. We really appreciate it, and you guys out there listening, do get out to johnrussell.net to
Mm,
get the general overview and check out Amazon and yes, your local mom and pop shop for his wonderful books.
yeah.
We thank you,
Thank you.
John.
Oh, listen,
Thank
it's been
you.
a blast, guys. I've really
It
enjoyed this,
has.
and look forward to doing it again in the future, and keep in touch,
Wonderful.
and really
Absolutely.
enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We
Absolutely. Thank
appreciate it.
you.
All right. Take
All
care.
right.
All right. You have a great day. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Don't leave stream.
And that's about all the time we've got. Anyways, we're just wrapping up. We did want to give another thank you out there to our new network, Pun TV, Paranormal United Network, and a big shout out to Joe at United Public Network. And next week, we've got Michelle Freed coming on.
Yes, we do.
Remote viewing,
Thank you.
the subconscious, and hypnosis are going to be some of the things we delve into. And she was also the producer for for Art Bell's show. So I know we got some art fans out there. Be looking forward to that. We'll see you next week, next Saturday night. Until then, have a wonderful spooky time out there.
Yeah. See you
Right
guys
on.
later. Thanks again. Bye bye.
Take care. Enjoy your weekend.